What's the story of your life? Is there a way to connect the events in your past and uncover the hidden meaning in your life story? Researchers suggest that we are natural storytellers. Our minds seem to process stories differently than we do other kinds of information. And people remember facts better if they're told through a story than if they're shown in a list, for example. Stories guide us. They frame not only how we see the past, but how we see ourselves in the future, all of which hints at the unique power they have to transform our lives. The author and philosopher Connie Rossetti suggests that the stories we tell about ourselves can shape our happiness and well-being in those moments where we feel trapped by despair and negativity. A good part of what we need is to learn how to tell ourselves a different story about who we are, to look at ourselves with new eyes and retell it in a way that empowers us and restores our own sense of purpose and meaning. So how do we do that?
I have to tell you something. Something insane, but true, about all of us. It started a long time ago.
Back in 1977, they detected a sequence, called it the wow signal.
What's it say?
This, I think, is the central question in the movie Stranger Than Fiction, a story about a man who lives an empty and unfulfilling life until one day he hears a voice that narrates everything that's happening to him. As he unravels the mystery of where this voice is coming from, he finds a way to completely change his life. We'll look at what this movie can tell us about the power of understanding your story, and there will be spoilers ahead.
And he began it the same way he... And he began it the same way he always did.
Hello?
He began it the same way he always did. When others' minds would...
Hello, someone there?
When others' minds would fantasize about their upcoming day or even try to grip onto the final moments of their dreams, Harold just counted brush strokes.
All right, who just said Harold just counted brush strokes? And how do you know I'm counting brush strokes? Hello?
I knew that I wanted to talk about a very special film, Stranger Than Fiction, as it has, in this YouTube Online Idiot's opinion, some of the best writing I have ever seen in a movie, full stop. Certainly worthy of an Oscar for Best Original Screenplay if the Oscars weren't a sham. It's also such a damn shame that it's so underrated because Will Ferrell delivers, and I can't believe I'm about to say these words, an amazing career-defining performance as he balances serious acting with dry comedic timing and wit, which I didn't know he had. Because, you know, most of the time his acting career is running around on screen throwing temper tantrums. Let me explain to you the brilliance of this film and hopefully convince you to go and give it some of the love that it really deserves.
Harold assumed his watch was simply on the fritz and never even considered that it might be trying to tell him something. In fact, Harold had never once paid attention to his watch other than to find out the time, and honestly, it drove his watch crazy. And so, on this particular Wednesday evening, as Harold waited for the bus, his watch suddenly stopped.
This is Harold Crick. For the last 12 years, every day of his life has been mostly the same. He brushes his teeth in exactly the same way. He ties his tie with the same knot. Every weekday, he catches the same bus where he goes to work as a tax agent for the IRS, and he's very good at his job. Each day, he takes a 45.7-minute break for lunch and a 4.3-minute coffee break. Every hour and every minute of his life is scheduled and timed precisely by his watch. After work, he takes the same route home, where he eats alone. And at exactly 11:13 every night, he goes to bed. In his carefully calculated life, there's no room for joy or spontaneity. But one day, everything changes. Suddenly, he hears a voice narrating everything he does.
Harold just counted brush strokes.
All right, who just said Harold just counted brush strokes? And how do you know I'm counting brush strokes?
Everything the voice says comes true. As he waits for the bus, his watch glitches. Harold tries to reset the time, and as he does, the same voice speaks again.
Little did he know that this simple, seemingly innocuous act would result in his imminent death.
What? Why? When? Why my death?
With all these questions, Harold really starts to worry.
Harold would brush his 32 teeth 72 times. Why won't you say anything? I heard you. That would result in his imminent death. I heard you. Come on, you stupid voice. Harold frantically grabbed his lamp. Harold incensed, shook the hell out of it for no apparent reason. Dashed it on the ground, kicking it repeatedly. Harold took his Kleenex box, threw it across the room, then stormed the closet. Come on, say something. Something. Say something! Say something!
The psychiatrist says that it sounds a lot like schizophrenia, but Harold tells her that the voice isn't telling him to do anything. It just describes what he's doing accurately, like he's a character in the story of his life. Well then, maybe you should talk to someone who knows about literature. It's here that he meets Professor Jules Hilbert, an expert in literature. He's skeptical about what Harold is saying because, even if it were true, Harold's life seems so empty and boring that he can't see anything about it that would be worth narrating anyway. And it does appear that way on the surface, until we get to this scene, which suggests that there's much more to Harold than meets the eye. If this image looks familiar to you, it's because it's a nod to a very famous painting called The Son of Man by René Magritte.
Has anyone else seen it? What happened to them?
But we continue to search. Life looks for life.
Magritte was part of the Surrealism movement that became popular in the 1920s, where works of art showed dreamlike images. They believed that one of the goals of art was to express the things we've hidden away in the subconscious mind. They saw it as a way of making the unconscious conscious. Magritte made the painting as a self-portrait, where a figure stands in front of a seaside landscape and a floating apple hides his face. Magritte tells us that everything we see in the painting hides another thing. We always want to see what's hidden, but it's impossible. Humans hide their secrets too well. There's an interest in that which is hidden, and which the visible doesn't show us. Many point out that the painting symbolizes the pressure we often feel to hide our true selves so that we can fit into the world. And when we do, we lose our sense of individuality. And much like the man in the painting, Harold hides away some of the most important parts of who he is. Only now, he's beginning to become conscious of it. Professor Hilbert asks, "Do you aspire to anything?" No. Harold, you must have some ambition, some underlying dream. Think. It's an important question, and many people have a hard time answering it. In the book Carl Jung Speaking, Interviews and Encounters, Jung says that the first half of our lives is a time when we develop the ego and expand into the world. When we're young, the goals in life are very clear: to achieve things like material wealth, marriage, career, all the things we're conditioned to associate with material success. But a crucial change happens by the time we reach the middle point of our lives. Whether you've achieved these goals or not, at around age 35 or so, something inside you begins to ask, where are we going now? Do we really want to go on like this forever, doing the same thing? Because our culture doesn't offer any answers for what we're supposed to do in the second half of our lives, the implied message seems to be that there's nothing ahead, only death. And since, as a culture, we don't really talk about it, almost everyone will go through a crisis of meaning by the time they reach this midlife point. It's here that we see Harold facing much the same crisis when he confronts the fact of his own death. He tells Professor Hilbert, "I've always wanted my life to be more musical. I've always wanted to learn to play the guitar." Well, then, I humbly suggest that you go live your life. However long you have left, you could use it to have an adventure. You could even eat nothing but pancakes if you wanted. This isn't a philosophy or a literary theory. It's my life. So go make it the one you've always wanted. For Harold, this is the moment everything changes. He decides to stop being a passive observer in his own life. He takes action. He buys a guitar. He learns how to play. He no longer ate alone. He no longer counted brushstrokes. Instead, Harold did that which had terrified him for so many years. He lived his life. At dinner, he asks his friend Dave, "What would you do if you knew you might die soon?" "I'd go to space camp. It's where kids go to learn how to become astronauts. I've always wanted to go, since I was 9. "Aren't you a little old to go to space camp?" "Dude, you are never too old to go to space camp." The Australian nurse Ronnie Ware, who spent years working with dying patients, listened to the regrets people had when they reached the end of their lives. There was one common theme in all of them. I wish I had the courage to live a life that was true to myself, and not the life that others expected of me. When people realize their lives are almost over, it's easy to see how many dreams went unfulfilled. Health brings a freedom very few realize until they no longer have it. It's one of the most powerful questions you can ask. What would you do if you knew your life might end soon? What passions would you explore? What relationships would you heal? What is it that really brings you joy? Because it's never too late to dream another dream. And the next time you're facing a difficult decision, your answers to these questions will clarify your intuition and help you make the choices that are true to who you are.
Someone or something is targeting scientists.
They're going after our best and brightest. The unknown troubles us. There are those who say we should not inquire too closely into who else might be living in that darkness. Better not to know.
There's a wonderful coincidence at the heart of this movie. We learn that the voice Harold hears in his mind, the voice that's narrating his life, is actually real. It belongs to a woman named Karen Eiffel. She's an author who's struggling to finish her next book. She doesn't know how to write the ending. She thinks she's writing a fictional story, but little does she know, she's actually describing the events of Harold's life. Every time he hears her voice, it's because Karen is typing those very same words into her typewriter. And although they're total strangers, there's a mysterious and unexplained force that connects them. There's an amazing scene where all of this comes together. Harold runs to a subway station to make a phone call. As he does this, Karen types and narrates everything he's doing. At exactly the moment she types the words, the phone rang. The actual phone inside her office starts to ring. When she picks it up, she's stunned to hear the real-life Harold on the line. She can't believe the man she's been writing about in her novel is actually real. How this happens is never explained, and yet this moment, this impossible coincidence is crucial for both of them to move their stories forward. It's also a beautiful example of what Carl Jung called synchronicity. Synchronicities are meaningful coincidences that happen when an inner state of the mind lines up with an event in the outside world. They're not connected by cause and effect. They're connected by meaning. In this case, the voice Harold hears in his mind is the inner state that lines up meaningfully with the story that Karen writes in the physical world. Jung tells us that what defines synchronicity is the sense of the numinous. It's the feeling of wonder and awe that lifts us outside of ourselves, connecting us with the divine. And it's so powerful precisely because it hints at the possibility that our lives are connected in ways we can't see. A deeper pattern, an underlying meaning, and a single unified reality from which everything derives. It's what Jung called unus mundus, which is Latin for one world. Synchronicities can bring us in contact with people, ideas, and opportunities we need at just the moments we need them, but not always. Dr. Bernard Beitman writes in his book, Connecting with Coincidence, that synchronicities don't necessarily tell us what to do. Often they're more like signposts that help move the plot forward. They're moments for you to pause and reflect. They offer opportunities, but nothing forces you to take them. It's up to you to choose. So ask yourself, what synchronicities do you see in your life? What new possibilities do they suggest to you? Because at any moment, you have the power to choose a completely different path.
That's the question, right? Oh, hello, darling.
When your consciousness ends in one world, it could continue to exist in many other worlds.
What do you think is happening?
I think we're at war.
How will you be remembered?
Go live your life.
To live my life? I am living my life. I'd like to continue to live my life.
I know, of course. I mean, all of it. However long you have left, you know. I mean, Howard, you could use it to have an adventure, invent something, or just finish reading Crime and Punishment. Hell, Harold, you could just eat nothing but pancakes if you wanted.
What's wrong with you? Hey, I don't want to eat nothing but pancakes. I want to live. I mean, who in their right mind in a choice between pancakes and living chooses pancakes?
Harold, if you'd pause to think, I believe you'd realize that answer is inextricably contingent upon the type of life being led, and of course the quality of the pancakes. You don't understand what I'm saying?
Yes, I do. But you have to understand that this isn't a philosophy or a literary theory or a story to me. It's my life.
Absolutely. So just go make it the one you've always wanted.
Professor Hilbert tells Harold that every story is either a comedy or a tragedy. Comedies are about the continuation of life, where the hero wins the day. Two people fall in love. They live happily ever after. But tragedies are about the inevitability of death. The characters suffer loss. The hero dies. An important lesson remains unlearned. So is Harold's story a comedy or a tragedy? This is what he's struggling to find out. Harold fears for the worst, and the IRS gives him a new assignment. He has to audit a woman named Anna Pascal. We learn that she dropped out of law school to follow her dream of running a bakery. The first time they meet, she hates Harold right away. "Get bent, tax man," she says. But he's drawn to her. Maybe it's because they've taken completely different paths in life. While he chose to ignore his passions to become an IRS agent, Anna did the opposite. She rejected a stable career so she could follow her heart. Whatever the reason, Harold can't stop thinking about her. The old Harold would have ignored his attraction to Anna. He would have been too scared to risk being rejected by a woman he likes. But now, knowing he might die, he's propelled to live with a new urgency and purpose he's never had before. So he meets Anna outside her bakery. He brings her flowers, literal bags of flour for baking. According to IRS tax rules, giving gifts to someone you're auditing is a major no-no. But Harold takes the risk anyway. She accepts his gift and offers to make him dinner at her apartment. He can hardly believe it. While she's cooking, Harold sees that she happens to have a guitar. "Do you play?" she asks. "Not really. I only know one song." "Great, then play it. No, maybe another time. But of course, that's absurd. When will there be another time? If not now, then when? He could die at any moment. So Harold takes a breath. He picks up the guitar, and he plays. And in that moment, Anna sees the real Harold. Not the awkward tax agent who hides his passions to fit in with what the world expects of him. The honest, authentic, true to himself Harold. And it's here that they fall in love. Just maybe, Harold's story is a comedy after all. There's only one problem. Harold meets Karen face to face. This is the woman who narrates the voice inside his head. We learn that every story she's ever written is a tragedy. Every main character in all 8 of her books dies in the end. Of course, Karen had no idea she was narrating Harold's real-life story. She thought she was writing a book of fiction. But unfortunately for Harold, she's already written the ending. And as soon as she types it into her typewriter, that ending will come true. She hands him her manuscript, but he can't bring himself to read it. And so he gives it to Professor Hilbert to read instead. I'm sorry, Harold. You have to die. This ending is Karen's masterpiece. It's possibly the most important novel in her already stunning career. It's absolutely no good unless you die in the end. You're asking me to knowingly face my death? Harold, you will die someday, sometime. Even if you avoid this death, another will find you. And I guarantee it won't be nearly as poetic and meaningful as what she's written. I'm sorry, but it's the nature of all tragedies. The hero dies, but the story lives on forever. And so Harold takes the manuscript and reads it for himself. It truly is a beautiful ending. He realizes that there's only one way his story can end, and so he accepts his fate. The psychiatrist Viktor Frankl said that our lives are like movies in one very important way. Movies are made up of thousands of individual pictures where each scene carries its own meaning. Yet the film as a whole can't be fully understood until we've watched the very last scene. Isn't it the same with life? The final meaning of our lives reveals itself only at the end. Frankl tells us that each of us finds meaning in our own way, by doing work that fulfills us, or by caring for the people we love. But even if you don't have these things, even if you're a helpless victim in a seemingly hopeless situation facing a fate that can't be changed, you have the power to rise above your own circumstance and find meaning in your own suffering. He points to the example of a man named Jerry Long, who had a diving accident when he was only 17 years old. It left him paralyzed from the neck down. Jerry could have told the story of his life as one that ended the moment he broke his neck, but he did just the opposite. He described his life as one that was filled with meaning and purpose. He learned to type using a stick, and he went on to attend community college. I broke my neck, but it didn't break me. I believe my handicap will only enhance my ability to help others. I know that without my suffering, the growth I've achieved would have been impossible. Frankl himself was a Holocaust survivor. He was a prisoner of the concentration camps in the Second World War. He lost his wife and his family. He remembers the men who walked through the huts and comforted other prisoners by giving away their last piece of bread. The things he saw in the camps convinced him that even if you can't change your situation, even when you're facing your own death, you can still choose your attitude in the face of that suffering. This is the last of all human freedoms that can never be taken away. It's with this attitude that Harold faces his own death. Knowing he'll die the next day, Harold finishes the last of his audits at the IRS. He makes one last phone call to enroll his friend Dave in the space camp he's always wanted to go to. And he has one last dinner, one final evening with Anna. The next morning, when Harold goes to the bus stop, Karen's familiar voice narrates everything that happens next. It turns out that earlier in the movie, when Harold was resetting the time on his watch, he accidentally set it 3 minutes later than the actual time. If he hadn't done this, he would have caught an earlier bus, and he wouldn't be approaching this particular bus that was now coming to a stop. In a twist of fate, the unthinkable happens. As Karen types the ending of her novel, a boy on his bike falls into the road. Harold rushes to push him out of the way, and in an instant, he's hit. But just when it seems that Harold's story ends in tragedy, he wakes up. The doctor tells him that he's seriously hurt, but somehow a piece of metal from his watch blocked an artery. This kept his blood loss low enough that he was able to survive. It turns out that Karen rewrote the ending of her novel so that Harold would live. But why? She says it's because her original story was about a man who didn't know he was going to die. A man who was unconscious and sleepwalking through his life. But if a man knows he's going to die and dies willingly, knowing he could stop it, isn't that the sort of person you want to keep alive? By becoming conscious of his own death and facing it, Harold changes the course of his own story. The movie invites us to ask, what story are you writing? Is it one that empowers you? Because when Harold asks if his story is a comedy or a tragedy, it misses the truth that it's both. Life is a comedy for those who think, and a tragedy for those who feel. We are beings who both think and feel, beings of light and shadow. And so it is that you will live moments of perfect joy, but also moments of inconsolable sorrow. To find meaning and purpose in the face of that sorrow is to know that at any moment, you have within you the power to rewrite your story, to retell your life in a completely new and wondrous way.
Eat a cookie.
I really can't.
Mr. Crick, it was a really awful day. I know. I made sure of it. So pick up the cookie, dip it in the milk, and eat it.
Wow. That's a really, really good cookie.
So when did you decide to become a baker?
In college.
Oh, like a cooking college?
I went to Harvard Law, actually.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just assumed it was...
No, it's fine. I didn't finish.
Something happened?
No. I was barely accepted. I mean, really, barely. The only reason they let me come was because of my essay. How I was going to make the world a better place with my degree. And anyway, we would have to participate in these study sessions. My classmates and I, sometimes all night long. And so I baked. So no one would go hungry while we worked. Sometimes I would bake all afternoon in the kitchen in the dorm, and then I'd bring my little treats to the study groups, and people loved them. Eat. I made oatmeal cookies, peanut butter bars, dark chocolate, macadamia nut wedges. And everyone would eat and stay happy and study harder and do better on the tests. And then more and more people started coming to the study groups, and I'd bring more snacks. And I was always looking for better and better recipes until soon it was ricotta cheese and apricot croissants and mocha bars with an almond glaze and lemon chiffon cake with zesty peach icing. And at the end of the semester, I had 27 study partners, 8 mead journals filled with recipes, and a D average. So I dropped out. I just figured if I was going to make the world a better place, I would do it with cookies. You like them?
I do.
I'm glad.
Thank you for forcing me to eat them.
You're welcome.
I should go. Oh, thank you for the cookies.
Why don't you take them home?
Oh, no.
Oh, come on.
No, really, please.
No, really, please.
No, really,
I want
please.
to.
Yeah, I would like to, but I can't.
You can't?
No. I mean, because see, it constitutes a gift.
Oh.
Actually, I shouldn't have even had those other ones, so.
Okay, well, I'm not gonna tell anyone.
No, I know, but if you did.
Well, I'm not
I
going
know,
to.
but if you did.
But you think I'm
No,
gonna call
look,
the...
I'll purchase them. I'm happy to purchase them. How's that? And there are no issues. What?
No.
Please. Why don't I just...
Go home.
No, it's not a big deal.
Go home.
Okay. Did you... You baked those cookies for me, didn't you? You were just trying to be nice, and I totally blew it.
What's the story of life? Dive into the fascinating world of synchronicity and the subconscious mind with the movie Stranger Than Fiction. In this captivating film, the main character Harold Crick, played by Will Ferrell, discovers that his life is intertwined with a mysterious author's narrative. As he navigates through strange coincidences and surreal events, Harold begins to question the nature of his reality and the forces at play in his life. Drawing from the psychology of Carl Jung, the film explores the concept of synchronicity, where meaningful coincidences reveal hidden connections between our conscious experience and the depths of our subconscious mind. It delves into the idea that there are patterns and meanings at work in our lives that we may not always be aware of. Now, fast forward to the new Netflix series 3 Body Problems, which delves into complex themes of science fiction and explores the interconnectedness of different worlds and dimensions. This series, along with the concept of synchronicity in Stranger Than Fiction, highlights the idea that there may be unseen forces and connections shaping our reality beyond what we can perceive. TomTom'STUDIO production brings these intriguing ideas to life in a thought-provoking video that unravels the mysteries of existence and the interconnected nature of our experiences. Discover the hidden threads that weave through our lives, and cover the mysteries of synchronicity and the subconscious mind. Embrace the interconnectedness of existence. In the dance of synchronicity, stories unfold like galaxies, connecting us to worlds unseen. Delve into the intricate web of connection between the movie Stranger Than Fiction, the Netflix series 3 Body Problem, and the profound teachings of Carl Jung on the subcontinent, mind, and the creation of our reality through thoughts and experiences. Through Stranger Than Fiction, we witness Harold Crick's journey as he grapples with the realization that his life is intertwined with a mysterious author's narrative. His introspective exploration echoes Carl Jung's teachings on synchronicity, where meaningful coincidences offer glimpses into the hidden realms of our subconscious minds. Enter the realm of 3 Body Problem, a Netflix series that delves into the complexities of science fiction and the interconnectedness of different dimensions. As we ponder the mysteries of existence through this series, we are reminded of the unseen forces and connections that shape our realities, mirroring the themes of synchronicity and subconscious influences found in Jung's teachings. Together, these narratives paint a vivid tapestry of interconnected realities, urging us to reflect on the profound ways in which our thoughts, experiences, and subconscious minds shape the very fabric of our existence.